Yo, what's up, world? Welcome back to the channel. APW Sports signing in, and we are just a little over a month away from NFL training camp beginning. I cannot wait, but it's time to do some outlooks to some things that we're probably going to look to see in training camp, and that is position battles for each of the 32 NFL teams. We're going to look at the article, and we're going to talk about each team's outlook of what position battles are going to stand out. So before I get into that, make sure you guys leave this video a like. It continues to help this channel to grow and to beast the YouTube algorithm. And if you're not sub, go ahead and click the subscribe button and notification bell so you will not miss anything that I post. But it's time to talk about it. Without further ado, let's dive into it. Okay, so we're talking about every team's most important training camp battle heading into 2023. And the first team we're going to tackle is the Arizona Cardinals, the left tackle position, which they drafted Paris Johnson Jr. from the Ohio State University. And they have DJ Humphries already in. So we're interested to see how that's going to go. We know the Cardinals are still basically, in my opinion, a rebuilding football team. But the addition of Paris Johnson Jr., I think he's probably going to win that battle, and this team is probably going to start the rebuild, and they're going to start young. So, and have that premier protection for Kyler Murray going into his contract. So I think they're going to end up probably letting DJ Humphries go as we look at this, and they see that DJ Humphries can be cut and save $9 million off the cap next year. So I'm interested to see how that's going to go for the Cardinals, but I see a scenario where Paris Johnson Jr. ends up winning that. So let's go to the next team. Atlanta Falcons is running back. That one is very interesting now that they drafted Bijan Robinson in the draft. They have Tyler Algier already on the roster as well as Cordell Patterson. So they have a three-headed monster or three-headed situation that they have at running back. Now, I personally believe that either Cordell Patterson is going to be cut or he's probably going to get moved to a more of a wide receiver role now that they drafted Bijan. But the Bijan pick was kind of a little bit head scratching, but Cordell Patterson is starting to get up there in age. So it's not as surprising, even though it's still a little bit surprising at the same time. So it's interesting to see where they're going to go. I thought the Falcons were going to probably go a different round of draft, but it's interesting to see how that is going to go with Algier, Patterson, and Bijan Robinson. So it's interesting to see how that battle is going to go at their running back position. And I believe that it is going to be a crazy one, because I think at some point, Cordell Patterson is probably not going to be asked to do much at the running back or less. He's probably going to be more like a weapon on that offense if they decide to keep him. Next, we're going to go Baltimore Ravens cornerback. Now, that one's interesting. Marcus Peters is still on the free agent market. They haven't brought him back yet. Rock Ya-Sin, and you have Marlon Humphrey. So, you have a bit of a battle at that cornerback position. I would have thought it would have been something else, but when you look at this Ravens roster, corner is probably the one position where you can see that there's some competition there. You can see that it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, in my opinion. I thought they would have by now signed Marcus Peters to be back, but they didn't. So corner, yeah, I can see that that team is going to have a bit of a battle at that position. Next team is Buffalo Bills guard. Now, I got to read a little bit more to see that. They opted not to sign Roger Saffold, even though he's been solid for them. But this Bills team struck by a lot of cap space. They have Connor McGovern, who they brought in free agency. They drafted Osiris Torrance. Ryan Bates is also there as well that can compete at guard. So, yeah, while this Bills team doesn't have a ton of needs, guard, I think, could be the position that's needed the most, and see where their competition is going to go now that Saffold is out of the fold. But I could see guard being that most needy or most position battle for the Bills. Next is going to go to Carolina Panthers. Now, yeah, quarterback. What they're going to do is Bryce Young going to start day one. Are they going to still ride with the guy like Andy Dalton, who they signed in free agency? and Matt Corral, who they picked in the 3rd round last year. So, yeah, quarterback could be the battle for this Carolina Panthers team. It's interesting to see how they're going to develop Bryce Young, what direction they're going to go with him. Is he going to be a guy that's going to start right away day one? Or is he going to be a guy that's probably going to sit for a second and Andy Dalton's going to take some of those reps? It's interesting to see where Frank Wright, the new head coach, and his team is going to go at quarterback. But, yeah, this is going to be an interesting position battle for the Panthers. Next team we're going to go to, Bears right tackle. I think Darnell Wright is going to be the starter. Darnell Wright is going to be the starter. I don't think it's much of a position battle at right tackle. As far as this Bears team goes, the position battle, I will probably say for the Bears, being honest, is probably running back, where Herbert, Foreman, and they drafted Roschon Johnson. I'm interested to see more of where that's going to go versus right tackle, because I think Darnell Wright is probably going to be the day one starter at right tackle. That's just my opinion. So, right tackle, I don't think it's going to be much of a battle as running back is for the Bears. That's just my personal opinion. But right tackle they have here, I think Darnell Wright is going to start day one. I'm going to just leave that out. Larry Borom has struggled with injuries. They still have Leatherwood on the roster, but I think Darnell Wright, they don't draft Darnell Wright to sit him. So I think they're going to draft Darnell. They drafted Darnell Wright, and I think they're going to play him. Bengals safety. Now, this one's interesting. They did lose Jesse Bates and Von Bell, two of their more contributed pieces on their defensive side of the ball the last couple of years, the Super Bowl run in 2021 and last year. They lose both in free agency. They drafted Daxton Hill with their 1st round pick. They signed Nick Scott, and they drafted another safety in Jordan Battle. So I think that is going to be a very battle-tested position, a position that they're going to probably have to not replace, but yes, replace Jesse Bates, replace Von Bell. It's interesting to see where the Bengals are going to be at that safety position now that those two are now out of the building. So, yeah, safety, maybe corner too for the Cincinnati Bengals. Cleveland Browns wide receiver. Now, that one's interesting. They have Amari Cooper still on the roster. Donovan Peoples-Jones is still on the roster. They have a 3rd round pick of David Bell and Elijah Moore, who they picked up, signing Marquise Goodwin, drafting Cedric Tillman. So, yeah, wide receiver can be a bit of a battle, especially with Deshaun Watson going to be in for a full season now. We know we have Peoples-Jones, we know we have Cooper, but what are their other receiver positions going to look like? What are the third, the slot? What are they going to look like for the Cleveland Browns going into 2023? And I think this team can be better, but receiver position, yeah, I can see that being a battle for this Browns team. Next, Dallas Cowboys tight end. Now that they lose Dalton Schultz to the Houston Texans, I can see that being a battle. Running back could be too, especially with Tony Pollard. We don't know what his recovery is going to look like. Is he going to be ready for the season? They released Ezekiel Elliott, but they did draft Deuce Vaughn. Malik Davis they still have on the roster. But tight end could be a position as well. Hendershot had a very solid rookie campaign. Princeton fans, who they got undrafted, Sean McKeon. So, yeah, tight end with Ferguson and all those boys. Shoemaker, who they got in the 2nd round. So, yeah, I think running back and tight end will be the two biggest positions for the Cowboys to battle in 2023. Next, the Denver Broncos wide receiver. It could be a possibility. We know we have Sutton and we have Judy. What are they going to get out of Hamlin? What are they going to get out of Kendall Hinton if they decide to keep him on the roster? Tim Patrick is coming off an injury. So they're going to need some reassurance at wide receiver. They did pick up Marquez Callaway. They have Marvin Mims, who they drafted, or Kendall Hinton can emerge. So, yeah, they can have a battle for that 3rd wide receiver spot behind Sutton, and we're not exactly sure what they're going to get from Sutton, because Sutton has been in and out of the lineup, but when he's in, he's been good. So receiver could be a bit of a battle for the Denver Broncos with Sean Payton coming in. Detroit Lions right guard. And I'm gonna read this a little bit. Yeah, they signed Graham Glasnow. They used a 5th round pick on Kobe Swordson, so that could be a position battle. What they're gonna do at running back, that could be a thing as well. And what they're gonna do on the defensive side of the ball with Cam Sutton that they signed, and also C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who they signed. So yeah, I could be standing last for right guard, can help protect that offensive line and be a run-first football team. So, yeah, I think the interior of the offensive line could be a battle for them. Next is Green Bay Packers wide receiver, and that is definitely a truth. outside of Christian Watson, it's like it's not a lot there. Romeo Dobbs did play solid. Samori Toure, but they did draft Drayden Reed, Dontavion Wicks. So, yeah, wide receiver. What are they going to get, and who can emerge at that wide receiver spot to help out Jordan Love in his first full season as a starter? So, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, I can see that being a battle for them. Let's see who they're going to get as weapons to throw around Jordan Love. Houston Texans quarterback, yes. C.J. Stroud. You still have Davis Mills. I think personally C.J. is going to be the quarterback. Honestly, I think this is a team that, unlike the Panthers, who made a lot of moves, they still have a lot of work to do. And I think C.J., even though I'm not biased, because even though he did went to the Ohio State, but I think C.J. is going to be the quarterback day one. I don't think they draft the quarterback to just sit him again, especially with the team that is still not ready to win. So I think it's a situation where I think you get CJ in and take his lumps. They did sign Case Keenum in free agency, but I think he's more there with veteran leadership and veteran purposes. So I think CJ is going to be the guy that starts day one. Indianapolis Colts quarterback as well. I can see that being there. They did draft Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew. They have Sam Ellinger, who they had last year. So quarterback could be in position. This Colts team is similar to the Texans. They're still not ready to win. They still have a lot of things to do, even though I think up front with their offensive line, they're a little bit more solid than the Texans are. So if you start Richardson, you can't be mad at it. And if you start Gardner Minshew, depending on what they really want to do with this franchise, this football team, I think they're going to end up starting Anthony Richardson at some point in the year. But I wouldn't be surprised if Minshew gets the first day reps. Jacksonville Jaguars tackle. I can see that. Jawan Taylor departed for the Chiefs, Greg Robinson coming back. So this team doesn't really have a lot of holes, to be honest, but solidifying that offensive line and protection around Trevor Lawrence can be a bit of a battle. Next, Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver, definitely. Juju Smith-Schuster left for free agency. You have Mecole Hardman, who also departed in free agency. And when you look at it, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is the main receiver that's coming back on this roster. So you have Kadarius Toney as well, but Justin Watson is coming back. So, yeah, you can see wide receiver as a position that can be a battle for the Kansas City Chiefs. And what weapons is Patrick Mahomes going to spread the football to? They also signed Richie James. They also used a second-round pick on Rashee Rice, who is a very solid receiver coming out of college. So, wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs is, I think, the biggest question mark on this roster, to be honest with you, coming in 2023. Next, Raiders backup quarterback. Jimmy G is going to start, but backup. I think this Vegas team, I think they still should have addressed the secondary, in my opinion. But I'm more interested to see what that secondary is going to look like versus what their backup quarterback position is going to look like. That's just me. Chargers defensive line. I think the entire defensive line, you had Khalil Mack. You have a guy like Joey Bosa who's been in and out of the lineup with injuries. So, defensive line, yes. Defensive line for them, I think can be, yeah. They opted not to resign Tyler Davidson, Christian Covington, and Forrest Merrill, who were big contributors on that front. Re-signed Morgan Fox, signed Nicholas Williams. They drafted Scott Matlock. So, yeah, the defensive line up front for the Chargers could be a big position thing. And that is going to be the main part of their defense. I think the other holes are kind of like solidified with them signing Eric Kendricks and J.C. Jackson coming back healthy with Derwin James. So the defensive line for the Chargers, I can see that. LA Rams interior offensive line, and let's just be honest, they have a lot of holes on this team. I think it's a rebuild team. Interior of the offensive line to help protect Stafford coming back off that neck injury. So even though I don't think the Rams are going to be competitive this year, the interior of their offensive line, you could probably look at the secondary without Jalen Ramsey now. So I can really see that being a position battle for them as well. Next is Miami Dolphins running back. Yeah, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr. Yeah, we're going to see who can tote the rock for them. They have the weapons in the passing game with Waddle and Hill, and Tua, hopefully he stays healthy. So running back, Yeah, they acquired the previously mentioned Jalen Ramsey on defensive side of the ball with Xavier Howard. So they have a lot of things on defense locked up. So who is going to kind of offset their passing game at the running back position? So that could be a position battle that can look to in 2022, as well as Myles Gaskin as well in the backfield. So yeah, running back Dolphins definitely. Minnesota Vikings corner, yeah, corners. Pat Peterson left, Duke Shelley left, Cam Dantzler left. They ended up signing Barry Murphy Jr., Joejuan Williams, and they drafted 2 corners, Mekhi Blackman out of USC and Jay Ward. So they have a lot of young players at their secondary position. Secondary wasn't great last year to begin with, and it's interesting to see where they're going to be this year as far as their secondary goes. So it's a lot of, not makeshift, but it's a lot of moving parts in that Minnesota Vikings secondary from a defense last year that finished 31st in passing yards. So I can interested to see that as a big time adjustment or big time. It's like what are they going to do at that corner spot? New England Patriots wide receiver, definitely. Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, Tyquan Thornton has some moments. They did throw Marcus Jones in there from time to time, but they need that true number 1 wide receiver. Could it be DeAndre Hopkins? We're still waiting to be seen, but they do have Smith-Schuster back. They brought him from the Kansas City Chiefs, but is he a number 1? I don't know. In his career, he hasn't really shown to be a true number 1. He's a very good receiver, don't get me wrong, but as far as that true dominant number 1, I haven't seen it from Juju Smith-Schuster, and I think they could possibly be the front runners to bring in DeAndre Hopkins, depending on when that happens, to get weapons around Mac Jones to help him kind of get back to where he was his rookie season. So yeah, I can actually see that happening. New Orleans Saints wide receiver, I don't know if that's the biggest position battle, but Chris Olave from the Ohio State. Now, the biggest question, if his wide receiver is Michael Thomas being healthy, that is a question. That is probably a battle something that we're going to look forward to. If both of Chris Olave and Michael Thomas is healthy and they're playing well, yeah. But Rashid Shaheed, he showed out. He had some moments. Traquan Smith has had his moments back and forth. But they did add Brian Edwards and they drafted A.T. Perry. So, yeah, they're going to have some battle at that wide receiver position. I think Chris Olave is very solidified at this offense at this point, but it's just the fact of the health of Michael Thomas and what can they get from the wide receivers around him. That is going to be a battle. So yeah, I can actually see that. And the main thing is Michael Thomas's health to surround Derek Carr. Giants wide receiver, definitely. I think they needed to do something in wide receiver and they didn't. In my opinion, they didn't have a great offseason. Sterling Shepard, he's been in and out with injuries. They did add Paris Campbell from the Ohio State University. Darius Slayton, he had a solid season last year. They added Jamison Crowder, but even though he's a little bit older, they did draft Jalen Hyatt in the draft. So wide receiver definitely is a battle and what they're going to get from that position, so I can actually see that. And that's probably the most look-to position with this Giants team, if they can continue the success that they had in 2022, as well as getting Saquon Barkley still playing at that level. So wide receiver for the Giants, yes. New York Jets tackle, yeah. Mekhi Becton hasn't really been healthy. Dwayne Brown is old, 38 in August. So, yeah, that tackle spot, definitely. They added Billy Turner. They drafted Carter Warner in the 4th round. So that tackle spot for the Jets is something that can really either make or break a little bit of their season, in my opinion. They have to have some health and some continuity up front. So most definitely, especially after adding Aaron Rodgers and all the weapons that they have. Philadelphia Eagles safety. They did lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson and they lost Marcus Epps, 2 of the starters from that defense that made it to the Super Bowl. And a guy like Reed Blankenship, he came in, he played solid. They added Terrell Edmunds, they added Justin Evans, they drafted Sidney Brown out of Illinois. So, yeah, safety, what are they going to get? What kind of player are they going to get from the safety spot, especially with Gardner-Johnson and Epps going? I think that is the biggest hole that this Eagles roster have, even though I think they still have one of the more complete rosters that we have in the NFL. So, safety, yeah, maybe you could have said maybe some offensive line positions, but I probably would go with safety for the Eagles. Steelers left tackle. They traded up for Broderick Jones to help with that offensive line. They drafted corners and Joey Porter Jr. They signed Patrick Peterson, Allen Robinson at wide receiver as well. So I was looking at wide receiver until the Allen Robinson trade happened to have some solidified spot at that position. But the offensive line hasn't been great, I want to say, the last 2 years for the Steelers. So I will probably say the Steelers offensive line, it could be a position back on what they're going to do to protect Kenny Pickett. So yes. And 49ers quarterback, definitely. Is Brock Purdy going to be back healthy? Trey Lance going to be back healthy? They signed Sam Darnold in free agency. What is this quarterback position for the San Francisco 49ers going to look like? Because that roster, you could argue with the Eagles is one of the more complete rosters that we have in football. So you think about it, yes. Quarterback, what are they going to get? Who is going to start? Who's going to play? What is going to happen at that quarterback position? You have a 3-quarterback battle, which means you really don't have one. So what are they going to get at quarterback for the 49ers? Next, we have the Seahawks defensive line. I think that's been a struggle for the past couple of years. But Shelby Harris is no longer there. Poona Ford, Al Woods, Quentin Jefferson, LJ Collier. They signed Jerron Reed, Draymond Jones from the Dolphins, who also went to The Ohio State University. Mario Edwards Jr. So that defensive line, I think is going to be a big need or a big battle for the Seahawks. That was one thing that the Seahawks has been missing for, I want to say, for the last couple of years now. And I think that's still going to be something to look out for. What are they going to get from their trenches up front on the defensive side of the ball? Next, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback. That's going to be an obvious one. Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. Which one are you going to go with? Now, I personally think Baker's going to start the season unless Kyle Trask does something to beat him out. But it's interesting to see where that's going to go. I think this team is kind of bit of, I'm not going to say rebuild yet, but if this year doesn't go bad, I think they're going to go into a rebuild. So quarterback, I don't know if they want to avoid the rebuild. If they want to avoid a little bit of a rebuild, I think you might go with Baker to try to get this team still in the NFC South division that is not very good. Or if you can see the future and you see yourself transitioning towards a rebuild eventually, I think you got to see what you get out of Kyle Trask. So I think at some point Trask is going to play, but I think Baker is going to start the season. Next, we have the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, they have a mess at quarterback. Tannehill, who's already said he's not interested in helping them guys develop in Will Levis or Malik Willis, who they drafted last year. Even though drafting Will Levis is a bit of a head scratcher to me, especially if you really thought that Malik Willis could be something, I think this is just not a good situation for either of those two quarterbacks. With Ryan Tannehill still in the fold, this Titans team, it's in a rebuild mode if you want to be honest with my opinion. I think Derrick Henry is going to be gone at some point within the next year or two. So I think quarterback, yeah, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Because I think this team actually needs a rebuild. So quarterback, are you going to play Malik? Are you going to play Will Levis, who you moved up the draft? Or are you going to play Ryan Tannehill to see if you can still salvage anything out of this roster, even though it's not much on it? So the Titans quarterback situation, I think, is going to be a bit of a mess all season long. And last but not least, the Washington Commanders is offensive tackle. You have former Bear Charles Leno, who they have on the roster. And at this point, yeah, they signed Andrew Wiley and Trent Scott in free agency. So you have an offensive line with the Washington Commanders that they need to get their left tackle spot really solid to protect Sam Howell. So, and they also signed Jacoby Brissett. So left tackle, yeah. Maybe to see what they're going to get out of Sam Howell, you have to protect him. So, yeah, that tackle position. But, hey, that is going to do it. That's going to be the position battles for each of the teams. Make sure you guys leave this video a like, comment your thoughts, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'm APW Sports signing out. Make sure you guys stay safe. Have a great next day, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.